I think as a small company, you can do things that a large company can't do. You can have like an unstandardized hiring process. In the beginning, I always tried to hire the absolute smartest person I could get for a task, thinking if I get the absolute smartest person, they will figure it out. And I got some good people, but the retention rate was atrocious. So I kind of switched way more to cultural values and say, let's find somebody who's challenged by the job, because these are people who enjoy challenge, which honestly is most people. And then you will be able to transfer those people anywhere, and they will stick with you because you give them something interesting to do.
All right, so I'm here today with Karsten Aichholz. And Karsten, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
The topic for today is really about how to build a business in Thailand that lasts. I know that you've been able to keep a business running that hasn't been solely dependent on you. So to start off, I'd love if you could give a brief background about yourself, just the TLDR of who you are, what you do, and what your exposure to Thailand has been.
Gotcha. Sure. So essentially, I came to Thailand in 2006, 24 years old. Back then, I had not much of a clue of anything. The very first rental contract we signed for a business was in Thai. Didn't understand a single word. 15 years later, I left, flew to Thai with $1 million more in the bank than I arrived with. So $1 million. And the company I've built during that time is still running today, and it's running without me. So basically, over that period, I built an organization that doesn't need me. So I guess my greatest accomplishment was making myself useless. So yeah, here we are.
I think that so many business owners here struggle with that. They often get a little bit bitter when everything's dependent on them. And it seems like you have a little bit more freedom, I assume now, that everything's not solely dependent on you.
Well, I mean, nowadays, I guess I have the freedom to volunteer on the school board of my little kiddo, try to find the power tools to hit around the house. But yeah, that keeps me busy, that kind of management rather than the other kind.
Can you sort of paint the picture of what Thailand was like back then?
So I remember the very first time I was in Thailand, arriving at Don Mueang Airport back then. And I mean, this was a time where you kind of landed in Thailand and you kind of expected there to be bicycles on the street. Like, just no clue what's going on. I mean, obviously, no YouTube, no anything. So you kind of go there and we're like, wow, this is actually a lot nicer than I thought it would be. Ooh. So I think that was the very first impression where I kind of had this image in my head. I spent some time in India before where I thought, okay, this might be rough, but it was really nice.
What was your first exposure to doing business in Thailand?
So my first exposure to doing business in Thailand was actually before I got here. So we had a company in Germany, essentially making websites and tools for online games. And at some point we realized maybe if you're a company in Germany and all your customers are in the US, it doesn't really make sense to stay in Germany. And my business partner had done an internship in Thailand. So we're like, could we move our company to Thailand? And that was literally the reaction of everybody, right? Like, right, yeah, okay. And I think that goes to show, like, and at this day I have that where I'm like, come up with some crazy idea. And the first reaction is always, surely that can't work. And I'm like, I'm not saying it's going to work, but I first want to figure out the real why not. So in this case, we had nowhere to start. It was like 2005. Okay, Google was around. That was about it. And then we were like, well, let's just start at the very first place we can think of. Let's call the Thai embassy in Germany.
Oh.
And ask them, hey, we want to start a business in Thailand. How about you talk to the Board of Investment? We're like, Board of what? The Board of Investment. It's the investment promotion agency of Thailand. Yeah. And they handle basically bringing business to Thailand. And at the time, we were like, 22, 23 years old, sitting. I wish we had a garage, but we didn't. But so we sat in our apartment together, and we had like 2 student helpers, and that was the company, right? And now we're supposed to talk to literally the Thai government agency in charge of bringing foreign investment, direct investment to Thailand. Well, we called them up, and they're like, well, why don't you just come in? I'm like, well, where are you guys? Oh, in Frankfurt. It's like, that's like 2 miles down the road from us. So we literally basically took the bus over, walked into the office, and there were like 5 people. We're like, well, here's our business. Can we take it to Thailand? And they're like, we'd love to. I'm like, really? Yeah. And like, you have to fill out a form and get to do a business plan. Like, guess we can swing that.
Yeah.
But if you need help with the form, we'll help you with the form. And so we filled out a business plan, did the form ourselves and handed it into them.
Yeah.
And they're like, all right, we'll send this to Bangkok and they'll contact you with an interview. So we essentially got on a flight, like literally 3 days later, flew to Bangkok, went to the Board of Investment office, presented our idea. They're like, all right, we'll think about it. You'll hear from us. And we didn't. We did get a recommendation for a lawyer that we ended up working with, who at some point called us up. They're like, guys, why are you not picking up your Board of Investment promotion? We're like, what do you mean? It's there. It's like about to expire in 5 days from now. Like, we never heard of it. Well, you're supposed to pick it up in person. I'm like, what? We're already in Germany. Okay, how about this? You just sign a blank power of attorney and I take care of stuff. You're like, what damage could you possibly do in Thailand with a blank power of attorney? So they're like, good, let's do it. Yeah. So sign a blank power of attorney, send it over, took care of everything.
Yeah.
And this whole thing of like signing something we didn't understand lasted for quite a while. The first office contract, no clue. Labor contracts, no clue. We were like, what could possibly go wrong? I mean, if we don't sign it, we can't continue. So that seems worse than the worst case. So let's just sign it and see what happens.
Yeah.
So that was like 20 years ago in Thailand.
My gosh. I mean, that's interesting though, that how helpful they actually were. I'm surprised they were that receptive. Do you think it was just due to the time? Were they just looking for a ton of investment and just open anything? Or what was the reason you think they were so receptive?
I think that was part of it. But in general, I think what people have this preconceived notion of like how things work. If it's one thing I learned everywhere in the world, that you have to find the people who will be on your side. The immigration officer at Don Juan, he's certainly not on my side. But the guy who gets a target to bring in foreign investment, he's on your side. He will want to like make this happen. As long as interests are aligned, you're good. And I think that even holds true today.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a lot has changed, but I think maybe people tell themselves the stories that, oh, things are impossible. There's no way to start a successful business in Thailand. There's no way to start a business if I'm only 20 years old. I think people make those excuses. And it seems like you, at that younger age, were just like, we're just going to make it work, or at least try.
A friend of mine likes to say there's 2 types of people. There's the yes buts and there's the why nots.
Right. Yes. I like that a lot. Whoa there, hold up for just 1 second. I'm sorry to interrupt, but if you are struggling with business operations, cultural challenges, or growing your business in Thailand, you are not alone. This market is really tough to navigate. I know because I've been here since 2012 and I've experienced a lot of these challenges myself. That's why I founded Fractioned, a Thailand-based consulting firm aimed at helping businesses succeed in Thailand. My Accenture experience from the US and our community of top consultants from around the world allow us to deliver top-tier strategy and execution to businesses in Thailand. If you want to learn more, you can book a free 15-minute discovery call to see how we can help your business. You can email us at podcast@fraction.io. All right, back to the show. So I had first been exposed to you through a website that was a very good resource for me when I came to Thailand. And I want to better understand how what you were doing in the gaming industry actually went into you producing a website that was giving expats knowledge for how to actually migrate to Thailand or start businesses in Thailand. How did that even happen? How did you get into that game?
I always created educational resources in some way, just instead of gamers, now it's expats. But more importantly, what happened for me was, over time, I've been doing this for a long time and markets come and go. The gaming business was in decline, and I'm like, okay, what's going to come next? And I thought about doubling down on that, and I think you would call it throwing good money after bad money. But I actually decided, now this is the time to try something new from my list of business ideas. How about I start a personal blog and I just write about whatever. And I will see what kind of reaction do I get. And one of those was health insurance. And I'm like, maybe I should write about health insurance. And there was this file where I created a spreadsheet to decide which health insurance I want to buy.
Yes.
And people create spreadsheets and sometimes they make decisions with it. This spreadsheet took me 3 days to create. I asked a bunch of brokers for quotes back then and nothing was up to the level of detail and analysis that I wanted. I was like, what about AIDS? What about organ transplants? What about these? So I just used all these fine print PDFs. They're like 60 pages long in every of those plans and pulled out every single clause and every single number that I thought was relevant and created a custom spreadsheet for that. It took me 3 days. Yeah. And at the end, I'm like, that one. And then I went to an insurance broker and said, I want that plan. He's like, all right, here you go. I'm like, wait, that's how you get a commission? That seems the easiest job in the world. But anyway, I was like, so it kind of was like, okay, all I need to do is just tell people how to make better decisions. So how about I use this mothership of a spreadsheet and translate that into somewhat slightly more accessible material, a 5,000-word blog post. And I did. And it was literally one of the first articles that went viral. I think it was the first article that went viral on that personal blog. Yes. I'm like, what? It's a 5,000-word article about how to buy health insurance. You don't expect that to be your first viral hit. Over the next few months, I posted more articles, and what always seemed to gather a lot of attention was when I went full on Rain Man on some weird practical Thailand topic.
Right.
Was it taxation or whatever? And then at some point I'm like, well, I guess I'm a Thailand blogger now. So I took all these Thailand articles and put them in a new website and called it Thailand Starter Kit.
Okay. And that's definitely where I was first exposed. Thailand Starter Kit resonated with me because when I came in 2012, 2013 range, that's where I was looking for things like health insurance, how to get a job, how work permits work, all that stuff. And by that point, I think you had created a lot of content on those topic areas. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that was like just in true, I guess, Karsten fashion. I had used an expense tracker to write down every single coffee I bought, every single Spotify subscription, every single thing over a 6-month period. I had the most detailed cost of living overview ever. Yes. And I used that to I published that as well. It was also a very unique blog post that got a lot of attention. But also when I first came to Thailand, I had a travel insurance plan. First 5 years, nothing but travel insurance.
Yes, so, interesting. 5 years on the travel insurance plan.
Yes. If you need one now, I have a website for it.
Oh, tell me. Yeah.
It's safeandnotsorry.com.
Okay.
I created it with a friend of mine who's an insurance broker who is, okay, travel insurance is horrible. You can't compare anything. Yes. What if there were such a thing as Google Flights for travel insurance? I'm like, that's cool. Let's build it. So it's like a little hobby project, and you basically enter your details, and it tells you what's the cheapest travel insurance, which has actually good coverage. So it's like a very small project, but it's just so incredibly useful because it really helps you figure out for analytical people, like what to get. The people who just buy a big brand don't need it. But if you're like an analytical person, that's your thing.
When did you realize that this was going from a hobby to actually becoming a business?
When the health insurance article launched, what happened is I went to these networking events in Bangkok and people started recognizing me. Like insurance companies are like, oh, you're the guy with the blog. I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, this has impact. And actually the health insurance I was insured with at the time, shout out ACS, hello. They're great. They're like, you know what? How about we advertise on your site? I'm like, that would be terrific. They're like, how much are you going to pay? And they're like, how about we pay you €3 per click? Yes, please.
Yeah, take it, right?
I will definitely take that deal. And a few months later, they're like, yeah, maybe that was too much. But yeah, at €3 per click, I realized, okay, we're on to something here.
Yes. Yeah, you had built up, I guess, quite a reputation by that point. And so, yeah, I can see that adding up pretty quickly. Very cool. I want to then fast forward a bit, though, right? So you're creating all these blog posts by yourself. You're now getting approached by individuals that are looking to advertise. Now, can you take me to when you hired your first employee or when you started to realize, or maybe not even an employee, but whether it be freelancers or others, how did you start to bring more on board to help you expand?
The interesting point here is I never hired anybody for that project because all the people already worked for me. So every single person who ended up working on that site had been hired years earlier. And they both really just, I worked with them, I liked them, they were good. And I'm a big believer in like attitude and willingness to grow and learn matters way more than domain knowledge. So I basically transferred all these gaming people over to be expat people. None of them actually being an expat, but that worked, yeah.
And so I guess that does say a lot about your method of hiring. I mean, do you feel that people mostly have transferable skills like this and are able to make that adaptation, or did you just get lucky?
Okay, so if you're OpenAI, you can get whoever you want. If you're a little outlet in the outskirts of Bangkok, you're competing with maybe not OpenAI, but at least with like Mercedes or Deutsche Bank or all the other potential employers in the city. So what do you offer your employees? Because it's certainly not going to be more money. Luckily, it's Bangkok, so you can't get anywhere. So Deutsche Bank is in Saturn. That's like an hour away, so not really competition.
Right.
But more importantly, in the beginning, I always tried to hire the absolute smartest person I could get for a task, thinking, if I get the absolute smartest person, they will figure it out. And I got some good people, but the retention rate was atrocious. Because what happened is that those people walked in, and they did the job, and they got bored, and then they left.
Right.
So I kind of switched way more to cultural values and say, let's find somebody who's challenged by the job, kind of is curious about growing and becoming better, but is challenged. So that kind of aligns very nicely with transferring them to another area, because these are people who enjoy challenge, which honestly is most people. And then you will be able to transfer those people anywhere, and they will stick with you because you give them something interesting to do. If you hire, we had actually one of the, for those people familiar with Linux, there's a very popular business distribution called Ubuntu.
Yes.
One of the core developers of Ubuntu applied at our company for a job.
Wow.
As a system administrator. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What? And he's like, I just need a work permit. And so I'm happy to do this. And I'm like, this is not going to work. Like, that's exactly the person I don't want. I want to have somebody who on his first day will copy over a bunch of stuff from Stack Overflow, and we have to have a sit down how that is not okay. And then it never ever happens again. That's kind of, I want to have somebody who can grow in that role. And I think that's a lot of about retention, is like having people for which you can offer a growth path. And as a small company, you don't have like an endless promotional ladder.
Right.
So that having just the job itself offer challenge is a really important aspect.
Now, if we can get a little bit more into the details of hiring in Thailand, though, because as I said at the beginning, a lot of expat owners or international companies, they'll complain a little bit about the workforce here. And they'll say, oh, Thai people can't do this, or there's all these generalizations about Thailand, about Thai people, about expats in Thailand, and people kind of just say all the reasons it can't work. And what you've explained to me before is how you've been able to build a company that you can trust people. They are working without you. And I want to know if I can extract any of the wisdom from you is about how you were able to do that.
So if there's anything, if there's just one thing you take away from this interview, it's when you interview people in Thailand, people are very differential. They will not ask you challenging questions because that would be inappropriate. So how do you find out that this is a match? That if they don't bring their own concerns out to you, because you're not just vetting the employee, they're vetting you. And a lot of retention issues comes from them realizing this is not the right job for them. And the single most effective hiring strategy I used is when I had somebody who I felt, this is somebody who I could hire, I'd be like, do you have another 2 hours? Because then you can just sit here with a team and just join them and ask them whatever you want. You can see how they work. You can see what their job is like. You can see who would be on your team. You get a full hands-on experience of the company. You will not walk out with any, ideas of that you maybe just deal with big brands or whatever. Like this is a hands-on immersion in the company culture. And that just weeds out so many people who notice this is not what they wanted. But it also goes the other way because, and this is maybe the little bit mischievous part, everything, the moment you walk into a door, is part of the job interview. So the moment they left, I went to the employees, who I have a good rapport with and said, what do you think about the person?
Yeah.
What did they ask about? What did they seem concerned with? What is your impression from them? And they're like, well, this guy only asked about the lunch break and the vacation. I'm like, all right, we're done. So your employees are actually some of the best interviewers in the company, especially if you don't sit them at the interview table, but kind of sit them together with a candidate so they can actually get to know each other in a much less formal environment than an interview table. And the candidate can see hands-on what it's like, Maybe they wouldn't speak up so much in an interview because it would cause a lot of issues if you would do that in a Thai job interview. And I think that is one of the biggest ones.
I love too that you said that it's an interview that's not just about getting the best talent, it's about making sure that they actually would want to work for you, right?
Yes.
And so this reminds me a lot of something like dating, right? If you're on a first date with someone, you want to put your best foot forward, right? And so I think in a lot of job interviews, what an employer is trying to do is say how great they are, how great the benefits are, how great the job is, right? But then it can actually take sometimes days or weeks until you actually realize what the real job is or what the limitations of the job is or whatever, right? But it sounds like through the interview process that you laid out, you were showing the real job in a way that I think a lot of interviews wouldn't, right?
I think so, yes. And I think as a small company, you can do things that a large company can't do. You can have like an unstandardized hiring process, and that doesn't have to be a bad thing. The one thing, every single employee I hired throughout all the years in Thailand, all of them will remember one moment in the job interview, and that's the Elvis test.
Please explain.
So the Elvis test is, and I literally, it was one of those things like 7 p.m. I'm in the office. I'm like, I just have to kind of brainstorming. How do I test English skills? Because I can test spoken English skills. And there are like these standardized tests, but they don't really convey what I want. People who can write, like have a voice, who kind of can communicate good in a written way. So I went to some website and pulled a short story. And this short story is basically about a disgruntled employee trying to kill his boss.
Okay.
I didn't even think about that part at the time, but at an Elvis lookalike contest, and the grand plan was to dress up as Elvis himself. And so it's like a 3-page short story, and I gave that to people and said, summarize this. And nobody has ever encountered anything like that. That is not a job interview test. You're just confronted with like a story about how he tried to kill his boss in an Elvis contest. I guess it also conveys a little bit what kind of environment are you working in here. Like this company might be a little weird. It was actually surprisingly great for evaluating English skills. And maybe that is a little bit less of an issue today, but I think still it's one of the main criteria in Thailand. Because you could really say, first of all, can they write a sentence? Second, do they just kind of copy random sentences together to make a summary? Because I guess summarization is not a super common taught subject. And then if they summarize, can they highlight the most important points of the story? And I mean, this doesn't make any sense if you're hiring, a coder or so, but for people who are communicating, and especially in written form on the internet, I felt this was massive. And to this day, I believe that was the best English language test we ever used.
It's great. I mean, because it just points out, like you said, how creative you can be as a smaller company, right? I guess it comes down to what advantages do you have? Big companies have their advantages, right? They have their referral networks and all these other things, but you have some advantages as a smaller company. You can be a lot more creative, it seems, right?
I think you can also just do less rules. I mean, when we first came here, we literally had like timestamps, for our employees, because that's what we kind of need from our corporate world. And then I'm like, well, this is kind of stupid. Let's just get rid of that. And then I think back in 2016, we just got rid of in-person office entirely. So about 4 years before everybody else, where I'm just like, you know what? You can work remotely. And in Bangkok, that's huge. Some of those people are commuting an hour and a half. And that is not something that anybody else would offer. And the people mess around on Facebook on their work time. Well, work time, probably. But this was an incredibly strong retention mechanism because nobody else could match this. And our employees constantly had to justify to their parents, with their parents, why they're working for such a company that is not so well known. Because that's something I realized. You kind of have to evaluate employees in Thailand in a Thai cultural context. So what do I mean by that? For example, you would never ask about parents in a job interview in the US. You're probably not allowed to do so. But in Thailand, it tells you so much, like how they talk about their parents. In the US, you always ask about which university you went to. In Thailand, the universities aren't that competitive. The high schools are. So which high school they went to tells you a lot more about them than which university. I know a lot of foreigners like, I want to have somebody who speaks up into a meeting and will be like challenging me. Like I want to have somebody who behaves like somebody who grew up in a Western culture. And if you actually hire somebody who grew up in a Western culture, I think that's a good standard. The problem is, if you're looking for those attributes in somebody who grew up in Thailand, they probably were like that always. And in Thailand, those attributes do not yield you a nice life.
Right.
They mean you are constantly at odds and fighting, and you like a lot of the people who kind of initially showed these Western attributes of like confidence or like, you know, being self-assertive, a lot of them turned out to be, assholes, like complete assholes.
Yeah.
So what I was thinking, what I was looking for was a Western attribute of speaking out was actually just the Thai version of being a dick. And I feel like, so we're kind of actively hiring against our own interests by trying to kind of somehow replicate this Western cultural environment. Whereas when we understand how you kind of get Thai people to speak up in their own culture, that works way better.
Yeah. A few years back, I remember you went through a rebrand and you expanded, right? So can you share a little bit more about the status of your business today, what it's called, and kind of what you provide?
So Thailand Starter Kit has Thailand in the name. And Thailand has not been without its crisis over the years. And there was a significant issue there of A, fully dependent on Thailand, and B, I knew I didn't want to spend the rest of my life in Thailand. So, and running a Thailand website from abroad would be it's just worse. I know actually some well-known Thailand bloggers who kind of hide the fact that they have left Thailand because they feel it would be bad for the branding, and yes, it would be. So to me, that was a bit of a idea of like, well, maybe I can use this idea that we created for Thailand and replicate that for other countries, because there's other countries like Thailand. So surely the same advice in some form must work there. So we did a rebrand to a site called Expat Den. It's expatden.com. And that is kind of the home of the expats. And we have this concept of the overly analytical, super in-depth content for everything from driving licenses in Costa Rica to health insurance in Mexico to retirement visas in Malaysia. And all of this is kind of a thing that grew out of the idea of maybe there's something we're doing right, and maybe there's other places where it can be done the same way. So essentially, I rebranded it as Expat Den, put people in charge, actually sold my stake, and left. You know, I'm still like sometimes involved where I'm like helping out or so, but this site is now run by my team that I hired 13 years ago.
Wow.
In Thailand, who went on to work across different projects, but who essentially took on that project and are still running it to this day. Every single person who works at ExpatDen full-time was hired by me in 2012 or earlier.
Wow.
Yeah, that's, I feel like, have I built the next Google? Nah. Have I solved a really interesting problem for small foreign business owners in Thailand? I think so, yeah. And there's just these insights you gather over the years. And, you know, many missteps in between, and where you just mess up and you're like, well, that was a massive mess up. How do we do better?
Yeah.
So this wasn't like some linear journey. It's like there were a lot of things where essentially, signing the rental contract in Thai didn't work out, but it got you one step forward. Did you kind of stub your toe? Yeah, but you're now one step further.
Yeah. That's incredible. It's incredible how long it's lasted. And again, something that wasn't even the goal of the initial business that you started, and how it's transformed, and then how it's continued to last on. Now, you've been really generous with your time, Karsten. I'd love, what is the best way for anyone who wants to either know more about you, get in touch with you, or just learn more about Thailand or other countries? What's the best way for them to get in touch or learn more?
I think most people are really interested in Thailand probably don't want to talk to me. So how to best get in touch with me would be my website, karsten.me, still around. There's a contact form. So if you want to have something that you want to have my perspective on, great, go for it. If you kind of just want to learn more about the things I talked about, those are things that I've written in the past that are now carried on by other people, whether it's expatden.com or that travel insurance site I at some point created called saveandnotsorry.com, which is kind of, I guess, my work.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Cheers.